Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video. And with the FB05 meta wrapping up and all of the FB06 cards and just leaders and everything being shown for the next set, a lot of people are wondering if there's going to be a restriction list going on into FB06. There's been a lot of discussion on it online that I've seen, and I kind of just want to give my own thoughts for it as well. This is a little bit more impromptu than usual. Normally I try to have some slides up for it, but we're just going to kind of wing it today and just kind of go over my thoughts for it in general. So all the data we're going to go over is on my website, Eggman Events. You can find it linked in the description. And also, if you want to do some FB06 deck building, all of the cards for FB06 are on my deck builder on Eggman Events too. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. And let's just jump on into it. So we didn't have a lot of events for this format around the world, which is unfortunate because I do think this is one of the more diverse metas that we've had in general. Looking at the tournaments that we did see, I think it's been pretty clear that the best deck, or at least the most popular deck in general, is probably the yellow Majin Buu, which is really interesting because it was a set 4 deck that didn't really get any support. It got like a little bit of support in set 5, but it ended up just kind of exploding in popularity, which I thought was interesting. And then generally speaking, the other most popular one is probably the Satan City Goku, which is again a set 3 deck that got a new card in set 4 with the Videl, which was very good, and then ended up just being very, still very relevant in set 5 despite really not getting any new support cards, which again I thought was interesting. So those are, I think, the 2 decks that I think most people are kind of talking about as the best decks in the format right now. I think that's pretty clear. If we look at the World Finals, the 2025, one thing to note about this is that this was an invite, so these top 16 was not only like the top 16 but the full leader card pool for this event anyways. So these people can just choose whatever they want, but most people were on the Halo Goku, and with 3 of them in the top 4, I think that's pretty clear for how strong the deck can be. We'd also have a Majin Buu with Miru on the build in the top 4 as well. And this just kind of shows that, most of these decks are still, I think, very strong, but a lot of people were on the Goku knowing that it was probably the strongest deck with the strongest player for it as well. So that's kind of been my observations for it. And now the other thing to kind of note before talking more about restriction stuff is that this format changes, right? We go into FP06. This could be a case where there's a different deck or a different meta that makes all of these cards like Janemba and Goku just not viable in their own way. So there is an argument for, like, if the deck is not going to be affected, why do we ban cards from it, right? Why do we do that kind of thing? And in my opinion, I think if there should be a restriction, it should be more so, one, I think game balance is already important. And I think some of the cards we're going to talk about in a little bit are based more on cards that will likely break the game again, or will have to have some design built around them. So why not just get rid of them in the first place? There is also a little bit of kind of, I call, like, the customer satisfaction, where even if the card is not inherently broken, or at the same thing, like it's not breaking the deck, the fact that card exists gives a lot of people bad gameplay experiences, which we'll talk about. And I think that's something that can also be addressed with the restriction. Even if the deck isn't like super strong, I think that could be a reason for it. It's not my favorite reason for it, but I've seen that happen in the past for other card games, and generally I agree with it, because it's a case where if the game is making it less fun for people to play, or people not able to play the decks they want to, we're also, as much as we're players, right, we're also customers, right? We want to make sure that the gameplay experience is the best that we can make it, and sometimes that does mean people losing their deck that is their favorite because it doesn't kind of mesh with what the meta that we want to see. So I do understand that on that side, but I do just kind of want to mention it. So we are going to just kind of look at like the 2 kind of baddies in this format, right? Again, the Satan City. Generally, there's 2 builds. There's the build that runs the stuff, and then the build that runs Great Saiyaman 2, right? So the other one has like a little bit more wiggle room, right? We are running mostly Satan City cards in both these decks, right? And I think the main culprit for a lot of people, right, is Pilaf, right? This card, I think, is just absurd at this point. Most people, I think, if asked if this card should be banned, the range is, yeah, probably, to I hate this card, I want to burn every copy of it, right? Like, it is to a point where I think it's clear in my understanding this card's been out for a year, right? I think that it is absurd that it finds itself, right? The biggest issue too is that you get into these late game scenarios with a lot of decks, specifically like with blue, that you can use all of your energy every turn, with peel off, right? There's other decks that exist in the format where they're like, oh, I have to pass with one energy open, or like I don't have an optimal play because I don't have these one drops to fill in my curve. And peel off you can play this card for one. You can, with 2 copies, like you can play it for 7 energy and get like a plus 10k every time. The fact that it just fills up your energy curves, you don't have to be worried about ever like running out of like things to do with your energy. I think that's an indication where this card is just super overtuned. And the worst thing about it too is that yes, it does really well in the archetype that is already about a lot of 1-drop earthlings. The card can be good in any blue deck ever because it finds itself, right? The fact that we just have so many indications where peel-off, like you can be playing a deck that has nothing to do with peel-off, but if you have like 3 spots or 4 spots left in your deck list, you put 4 copies into it and you're never upset, right? This card is never dead. It's never the worst card in your deck. And again, the fact that once you find 2 or have 2 in rotation, you can just use all of your energy every turn without any consequence, which I feel is just an indication more so than anything that this card should be hit, right? We see a lot of other cards in this game that are like this. I think the best example is like the Hercule that we get out of or for black for FB03. It has the same kind of effect, but it prevents it from finding itself as well. So I think that this was an indication that, oh, this is probably an overtuned effect. We shouldn't have it be able to find itself. And I think that's very clear based on future design. So maybe if they errata it to make it so peel-off can't find itself, I would probably be okay with it. It means that it's still good in Satan City, but it's not something that you can loop as easily, which I think is something that indicates more skill than a restraint. I don't know if they're up for doing any restrictions with erratas in that way instead, but it does mean that I think peel-off is universally worse in the fact that you can't just play 4 copies or 3 copies in your deck and get away with just an infinite value engine at the end of the day. So I think that's something that's really indicated by this in general. So then we also do have I'd say Majin Buu. This one I think is a little bit less clear on like what the biggest option for removing from this deck is, but from what I've been seeing, a lot of people have been looking at yellow and FB06 with all the new stuff we get, and the consensus is, why is this better than Majin Buu Evil, right? Like even the starter deck Vegeta I think is like maybe a little bit more consistent since you don't have to see as many pieces, but the fact that Majin Buu Evil essentially gets the same amount of attacks but also has the chance for some hand destruction against some other decks, and the fact that we have a double striker to finish the game, right? I think unless you tech into it, the new Daima Vegeta is more based off like a lot of single strike damage, which means that you can go down to 1 pretty comfortably against that deck, knowing that they don't like you can go down to 2 rather go in against that deck, knowing that they can't like double strike you unless they spend like 5 energy out of nowhere, right? So I think that's something that Majin Buu has against other decks. It's very flexible in its deck construction too. You do have like a core package of your Babidi stuff, but other than that, you are just kind of in a good spot in a lot of ways. So we'll talk about the card that I think needs to be hit in a little bit, but I do think that this is a deck that is just universally good right now. I think is a little bit overtuned. I think most people will agree. There is a chance again that this deck doesn't do as well into the FB06 format. There could be other decks. I don't think there's any yellow deck that outpaces it, but I also don't think that outpacing like a previous deck is, you know, what you need to do with new decks. Just a different way to play, I think, is the most important thing. So because of that too, I do think that there is a chance that this Gogeta can be really impactful against that deck, right? This essentially just says Majin Buu can't do anything that involves untapping, which is really strong. The issue with this is that this is for 1 color out of the 5 that exist right now. Honestly, I don't really like these silver bullets as much, that just kind of warp a matchup in a lot of ways. I think this one's a little bit heavy-handed, but at the same time, it also costs 6 energy. You have to get to the late game, and you know, unless you have like the marker, right? Majin Buu gets to do their combo at 5, so there's a chance that, you know, this card is, you know, too niche to only black decks, which generally speaking, I think black has been one of the worst colors in this format. It hasn't been really topping that much compared to everything else. Like we see sometimes like Vegeta Baby gets a little bit of tops here and there, but generally, and I guess a Bardock as well, but generally not in this meta right now. So it's going to really need to change from this next set, or from this previous format to this, which maybe this card can help shape that. But you know, the fact that if this is like a 5 cost 30k that has a similar effect, maybe it'd be more impactful against yellow, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that being able to, especially if you have the marker, do this a turn earlier than you're expecting to against the Gogeta decks means that you still got the value that you needed from it. So at the end, you're going to see this. Do not just look at this without any context. I do want to go over these cards real quick. I don't think every one of these cards should be hit as well, but these are just the cards that I see generally talked about from a restriction list point, and I want to go over them. Do not think that this is what I think the restriction list is going to be. Just let me talk through it real quick. So, Pilaf, I think this one should get hit. Of all the cards, I think this should be hit. Even if blue is not relevant in this next set, I think this is just a card that is just too overtuned. It is just very easy to get this out of the game, and then it just makes it open for just different things to go in blue. I think any blue deck just automatically places at 4 copies. And I think like the other thing I do hear, like occasionally people say, oh, if Pilaf goes away, then blue's not a viable deck. I don't think that like that phrase just hurts me, right? The fact that the entire color is blue is only relevant because this card exists is not healthy in a different way, right? It might mean that blue might not be relevant for meta if we restrict this, and then we'll have to change something going into the next set from it. But I think this card is just bad for the game in general. I'll just be straight up about it. I'm not that heavy handed normally, but I think this card just needs to go. When you see, like when I was watching the World's Mirror match, right, it was just people playing Pilaf over and over. When I play on the online client, especially with the additional time it takes between actions, it's insufferable. When I play against Halo Coup, it's like, this is going to be 40 minutes. I'm going to feel like I'm behind the entire time, and then I'm going to lose, but I have to play it out anyways because it's lame otherwise. So it's just unfortunate. I just think the card needs to go. For yellow, I really don't want to hit Bobbity. I really think that this is a bit of like the reason that the deck exists. I know, like I just said, like Pilaf shouldn't exist, right? Because it's the best color in blue. But this is like one of the best cards in a specific archetype, right? So I understand that if we remove this card from the archetype, it just destroys what the archetype wants to do because this facilitates it a lot. You could do it, and I do know a lot of people want this card banned because of how it works, and I totally understand that, right? I think that's something, if they hit it, I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't be currently what I would be asking for, but I do think that there are times that this card is broken. I do think that is also, most people who lose with Majin Buu, they're in the case where they only saw 1 or 2 Bobbity when they should have seen 3 or 4, which is generally how I lose when I play the deck. So maybe that is a factor for it. Maybe this card could get hit, and that would be something where Majin Buu would just be not around because of it. But I do think that this card is a little bit central to how the main deck works, so that is a bit impactful. I do think, like, if we were not trying to hit Bobbity, maybe Majin Buu Kid would be a better, like, even if we hit this card down to 1, I think the combo of 5-drop Kid into Bobbity into Majin Buu Kid is just too much pressure, if I'm being honest, right? You get 2 30k attacks, you might make your opponent discard a card. You also get 2 20k attacks, and then if your opponent goes to 2 at any point of it, you just shotgun with your 35k double strike, right? So that just feels like it's too much pressure. I think that's just like one of the best ways to end this game right now. There's not honestly a lot of counterplay for it because you will naturally be at a low hand size because of how much hand destruction is going on too. And I feel like with Majin Buu Kid, it just has such good finishing power with everything else that it's probably too strong, if I'm being honest with it. So this would probably be the card. Maybe we even hit this down to 1, but I feel like this is a bit overtuned for what we're doing. And if we don't want to hit Bobbity, which again I think could happen, and I think it's something that could be like warp how yellow works, then maybe Majin Buu Kid. I'm not saying that this has to be, but I'm just like, yellow, like this whole deck, right? We're playing just a bunch of cantrips, right? We're playing a bunch of generic cards, and then we're eventually just getting to the Majin Buu Kid double combo with Bobbity, right? So if this card I don't think should be banned because it is like the kind of super rare for the deck. If this card shouldn't be hit because it's kind of like how the engine of the deck works, and maybe just one card that overtunes the engine a little bit is the one to hit with it. I don't know. You guys can let me know what you think. And then lastly, I didn't really talk about green, but I do want to mention this card real quick. I do think this has probably been, along with Pilaf, the most requested card to get hit in this card game, right? I think that in green specifically, when it comes to ramp decks, you always go to the deck that ramps the fastest, right? And Android 1718 just lets you do it with really no cost and only benefits for this card, right? The fact that it's a 10k, the fact that this card is very searchable, the fact that you technically only play this card for 1 energy as long as you have the energy to play it for the first place, the fact that you can double ramp on 5 energy and then still have 3 energy open to do things, and then you go to Broly 8 drop next turn is really good. I know a lot of people are talking about the new 9 cost Broly that we get from FB06, and the fact that Android 17 and 18 can just ramp to this very easily, and then they have like this double striker that's, you know, it's the best of both worlds, right? We have like Cell 8 drop that a lot of people use, and they have Broly 8 drop that a lot of people use for 1 more energy, which is very non-consequential for Android 1718. You get to do a board wipe, you get an unconditional heal, and then a 55k double strike after a 30k leader attack, right? So I think that this is a case where I think the ramping from green is a little bit too much. We've had other ramp decks try to exist in this game, and they just don't, because again, 17 and 18 just do it way better. And so then there's no incentive to play any other ramp deck a lot of the time. So that's why I think like a lot of the green leaders that have existed since from like what I think set 4 are mostly about energy manipulation, but none of them are ramp, because it's just understood that yeah. So we have like, you know, Son Goku, right? This one is like a 7 or less. This one also just energy less, right? Piccolo kinda like is supposed to ramp, but it doesn't really have the great cards to facilitate it. Cell's also about ramp, but it's very clunky compared to how it works for Android 17. And this card technically is ramp too, right? And it has it built in with the leader, but we just kind of shifted away from like a 3 life leader on Awaken being relevant. So, and that's also the same thing with Broly, right? Broly cheats higher cost cards out, but also restricts it to only being at 4 energy at any time. So I do like the diversity in what we're doing, but I also think that 1718 restricts the design space a little bit. I don't know if they're going to hit this card. Obviously 1718 has only been doing so well in this previous format. I don't think I think the deck is just not going to be the worst deck around, right? You'll see it just continually tops in pretty much every event in the last couple of events in this format, right? I did run some like my own events too, where it did some strength, right? It did really well, and like it did well like week 1 because it was like the newest deck, right? But as you see, it's like the green deck that's just been relevant since set 2 for almost a year now, and mostly because this card exists and lets you just kind of bend the rules of the game in my own experience. So I wouldn't be too surprised if that happens, but generally speaking, I think Pilaf needs to be hit unconditionally. I think it's been proven to me in my experience that this card's just too good in its current state. Something from Majin Buu, I think Babidi if we want to make sure the deck doesn't exist, Majin Buu Kid if we want the deck to maybe exist in that case, and then Android 1718 if we find that we want to get rid of this. If they ever want to make another ramp deck, they have to, 1, either power creep this card, which seems terrifying, or 2, just make this card not exist anymore, or give it like a more fair version in a future set to where like there is some actual cost to run it in your deck compared to you get a free 20k, you get a one energy 20k swing, you get to ramp a card, and worst case it's a 10k combo that is also incredibly searchable in its archetype. So that's kind of my thoughts. This is a little bit rambly, a little bit off the cuff, but I did want to talk about it. We are approaching FB06 in the next couple weeks, and I want to make this video before it was sitting on my desk for too long and FB06 already came out. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if I'm too off base about a lot of this. I'm really looking forward to FB06. I am doing like a testing and building stream in the next couple weeks too, so make sure to check out those. And that's going to be it for me. So thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.